From sunny Southern California, we bring you Meet Bridget, a podcast for building confident communication and female badassery. We spotlight women who have bridged the gaps in their lives by building strong relationships and speaking their teenage dreams into reality.
Bring it on, baby.
Welcome back to Meet Bridget. I'm Asha Gabriel, and I co-host this show alongside my best friend, Kashia Rosenberg. Our show is a giant library of career and life path options for young women to relate to by sharing the honest and unfiltered teenage stories of a diverse array of successful women. We believe that confidence starts with self-trust and that it grows through authentic community. Tapping into our formative years makes this Meet Bridget community a place where all women of all ages and stages can connect on common ground. Today, I'm delighted for you to meet Courtney Colleary. Courtney is truly a multifaceted businesswoman. Here in our Orange County community, she has a reputation for being that person who can step in and instantly make a home or event efficient and gorgeous. Courtney is the ultimate chaos coordinator. At just 22 years old, she opened Coco Rose Boutique in the heart of Old Town Orange, and she ran that for a decade, earning the title of Best Boutique in Orange County 6 years in a row. Since then, she's gone from dressing women in confidence to helping them live in it. Now, she's a former founder of the Organized House and the event director at The Nest, and she's turning overwhelming spaces and impossible timelines into seamless experiences. I am so thrilled to have you on, Courtney, because and she's also pregnant right now. You really know how to take a mess, whether it's a event or an idea or a home, and find the order and the efficiency in it. So I can't wait to dive into what you're doing right now, what your day looks like, how you approach things, and then we'll take it back to where all of this came from when you were younger. So I'd love to start with a day, a week in your life. I know as being this kind of entrepreneur, it's got to vary a ton, I'm sure. Each day probably looks different, which is so exciting. But can you kind of walk us through what your daily workflow looks like?
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. I think it's so funny, like how people are so different in regards to like, oh, I just want, my days to seem the same, simple and everything. I know what I'm going to wake up and do, which mine is nowhere near that. The best way I describe it is like I'm a concierge to so much. So right now, God, I can talk about just this week alone. Like we had multiple organizing projects going on. So I was manning those teams in all different areas of Orange County while I have a engagement party I'm putting on this weekend. So I'm working on that plus a wellness event on Saturday tomorrow that I'm putting on as well. So my days wake up pretty early between like 5:30 and 6 a.m. and I'm immediately on the computer getting back to all 5 of my emails, different Gmails and everything, getting back to everybody. And then from there, I pretty much spend my day in my car. I always say my car is like my safe haven because I'm in it so much, jumping from like business to event and, just kind of solving problems throughout the day. It's always different.
I love it. And I think that I love featuring people like you on our show because I think when you're young, you think you have to pick one career and really know it and just like climb the ladder, and become an expert in it. And I think you're such a wonderful example of someone who's grasped all of her talents and the ways that her personality can actually be applied to so many different things.
Yeah.
And instead of just picking one and saying like, okay, I'm just going to do this one thing, you found this way to say like, actually, I'm going to do a lot of different things. And they just fit together because they're all part of you. And you have this unique perspective on that.
Yeah. And that's, what's so funny is I battled that for so long because I honestly, I kind of envied people when I was younger who had like one passion. And it was like, oh, they were, they had a sport that they loved, or they had family business that they knew they were getting into. And it's so funny for me. It was like, I almost looked at me loving so many different things and not knowing as like not a good thing. And I mean, we'll dive into it once we get into the teen years, but it was just like, especially the time of like my generation growing up, it was very streamlined. Like you went to high school, from high school, you went to college, and from college, you know, you did the careers that you were studying in college and stuff like that, which at that time, my path was so different. And I didn't realize until I got older how much I kind of was the rebel. And I was like, oh, this is why it was so challenging for me, because I was just like, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to say yes to everything. And that's kind of carried through my entire adulthood. Even just the way we met. Like
Mhm.
I'm laughing like the way we met. And I'm like, I'll do your grazing table. And I was like, Courtney, you don't even have a grazing table company, but this is creative, this is fun, and you love this. And I did, and I get to meet great people like you. So I feel like me saying yes to so much different things has gotten me to where I am today with just knowing so many people and doing so many different things.
I do also think that it's such a testament to, you know, having pedigree or this or this or this awards and everything can earn you work, but so much of being hired for something is your attitude, is your work ethic, is your completion of a job from beginning to end, and a recommendation from that. That's how people get, especially in more, you work, your businesses are yourself,
Yep.
in jobs like that, it's so much just your reputation and your attitude and your consistency in those things.
Yeah.
That's what gets you hired. So I, reached out to you on recommendation of one of my best friends
Yeah.
and had seen your work at an event that I was at her house and reached out. And so for those of you that don't know, you might have seen some of the clips from our season 5 launch party at my home. And Courtney made this beautiful grazing table. Everyone loved it. It was so perfect for the day. It was just gorgeous. She took our direction and ran with it and made it even better. And from that point, I just, as we were going through the event, was watching Courtney and seeing how she did everything and her communication. And I was like, this is a woman that needs to be on our show because she's so versatile and she's able to it was a chaotic event. Every event like that is chaotic.
Every
There's
event
things that
is
come up.
chaotic
You kind of
always,
you project what a timeline of an event preparation is, and then things change or things run late or there's always that. I mean, in
which is
every
like,
event.
which is my heaven.
Yeah.
Like I thrive in that, which is people's nightmare. So I'm like, give me,
Yes.
I love it. I live for it. I honestly like it. That's what fills my cup is the chaos, which is like so funny because I'm like, when I say that out loud, I'm laughing. I'm like, I know I'm talking a lot about that in therapy too, because that is that good that I love the chaos. Like I'm so comfortable in chaos. But yeah, that's kind of my bread and butter. I love that.
What's your sign?
Aquarius.
Aquarius.
Yeah.
Okay. It's so funny because one of my major topics in therapy has been that I've had, I mean, when someone's like, talk me through your work history, I'm like, I need like an hour to really,
Oh,
we have done
my
so many
favorite
things.
my favorite and nightmare of a question is, "So what do you do?" Because 'Cause I'm like,
Like, ugh.
um, like, where do I how long do you have? Where do I begin?
Right? And it's like the person you are today and the work you're doing today probably took little granules from every single experience that you've had, and it's all combined. So you want to kind of like explain where all those things sort of came from and like paint,
Yeah.
because like you look at my resume and like someone would be like, whoa, you are all over the place,
Oh my god,
but I'm not.
when I found out a resume should, like, be on one page, I hadn't done a resume in decades, and when I had to d dwindle down, I'm like, "How do I put me on" like, that was my biggest thing, I was like, "How do I put me on paper?" Because I don't even know how this is gonna translate. It's gonna look like this girl does not settle down, she's chaotic, it almost would look like I don't keep a job because I just do so many different things constantly. I was like, "I'm not good" like, me on paper, I don't know how much I like that. Give
Yeah.
me a person and we could talk it out, but on paper, I'm like, "Oh my god, I feel like I'm everyone's nightmare."
I think that's so fascinating though, because it just speaks to your personality. I have mentioned to Kashia in my interview that like every opportunity I've gotten, not one has been through a online submission of a resume or application or writing. It's been like, hey, I want to take you to coffee and learn about this thing,
Yeah,
or just pick your brain, and then it turns into like a job opportunity just from like
100%.
interest and curiosity and communication. And I think that that's not talked about as much, that it's
No.
like the opportunities, it's so easy, especially when you're like starting your career, to get
Yeah,
so lost
oh,
in the like submitting things online and just never getting responses or being critical of like, what does my resume look like or
It's
this or
so
that.
defeating. It's so
Defeating.
and it's honestly, it's never been an avenue that I have taken, and I have a love hate, but I love the way the world is going in the sense of like everything I was taught as a child on like it's all in who you know, make these relationships, don't burn bridges, like all those things that were engraved in me by my dad carries out so largely now in the world that we live in, where back when I was being taught this and I was working through that, that wasn't normal. Every single one of my friends were doing the resumes and interviews and all, and I never took that avenue. And at that time it wasn't what it is now. Like it's
Yeah.
almost like shined upon to like, go meet the people and all this kind of stuff, where like back then, that sounds so crazy coming out of my mouth, but like back then it was, you were applying on a resume, you were waiting for those emails, you were, and it's so different now. It's so different.
It is.
That.
Which I think is a blessing and a curse because I think it can
Yeah.
be a little bit overwhelming, where it's like, okay, well, then maybe if it's on me to create opportunity, what does that look like?
Yeah.
And I think it forces you to stop and think about, well, what type of person am I?
Hmm.
What are my qualities? What are my strengths? And
Yeah.
then from there, like, where are all the different avenues that those strengths could be applied? And that's so much of our show is to like take it back instead of saying like, how can I fit myself into this opportunity
Yeah.
or shape myself to be this person? It's who are you really? And then you can grow your
How do you
skills and
Yeah.
practice and get work experience from that. But like identifying your core values,
Yeah.
your like the things that light you up while you're working or playing,
Yeah.
and finding a way to make those useful in the world.
100%. 100%.
For for someone, so let's dive into each of your businesses right
Okay.
now.
Okay.
We'll start with the organized house.
Okay.
Um, you clearly, if you go to their Instagram, you can see how Courtney literally like takes chaos and turns it into something beautiful. To me, like that sounds so scary. It
Yeah.
sounds to walk into someone else's chaos and be like, let's like sort through this. It's one thing to like organize your own home, but to like step into somebody's, say their pantry, right?
Yeah.
Is it's really personal. You're seeing like what are they
Mess.
snacking on? Like what are their staples for food and stuff?
Yeah.
And you have to be able to be professional, but also make that person
Feel
feel
comfortable.
comfortable and make them able to like eliminate
Yeah.
things. Can you tell us a little bit about what in your personality, your communication, your style, do you apply in those settings?
It's so funny because with this company kind of fell in my lap at a very odd time in my life, which as we go back through like the younger years, like that boutique store Coco Rose that I owned for a decade, COVID kicked my ass in that. And so there's that whole storyline of COVID and having to make the decision to close that store. And when I closed it, I got reached out to from a friend of mine that I went to high school with, who started doing organizing and everything. And I jumped on board with her. I am the furthest from an organized human. Like, that's why I thrive in chaos. Like, 500 million tabs opened in my brain. Like, Courtney and organized, I don't think would ever be in the same sentence for me. So this was very, very interesting. But what I realized as I dived into working in that type of environment was my skills were not the micro organizing, my skills were the clients.
Mm.
And what I realized is I basically could do any job if I'm surrounded by good people. And for me, I didn't realize until I dived into it and started the organized house was my strong suit was not going to be, color coordinating and do like that wasn't going to be my strong suit. My strong suit was going to be with the client. And you're absolutely right. It's so personal. And I didn't realize it until I started diving into projects because the things that were getting reached out to me was I just lost my husband and I have to go through all his stuff and I have to, figure out what I'm going to do with this and make sense of it. And like everything was so sensitive. Or, I mean, every person, like one of the things that I realized is every single home is exactly the same. It doesn't matter whether you've got all the money in the world or no money at all. Like everyone has chaos behind their front door. Everybody has the same inventory pretty much, but it's all personal. Like, we're in your nightstands, we're in your clothing and your underwear drawers and your pantry and your garage with memories. Like, we're genuinely seeing it all. And so my strong suit strictly came in with clients. And I think for me and my personality is I am so intrigued and interested by everybody. Like, I want to know your story. I want to figure this out for you. And like, people pleasing skills, I guess, come into play that I've learned is like, I want to help. I rather change your life than almost my own. Like, I'm so intrigued to do that for you that, like, allow me into your home and I will make this better. And so that's kind of what gave us the success, was bringing in people's very intimate emotional storylines and everything, and their chaos, and creating seamless systems in their life that, like, was able to give the new mom a breather who had a toddler running around and a new baby. And she's trying to solve every day, from whether it was making lunches or the playrooms and all this. Like, we were able to bring systems into their lives that, like, truly was a lifetime game changer for them. And that's been like the biggest thrill and the most exciting part of that company, is that it's not it's the organizing, but really it's like changing everything for the client.
I think that's so important to note for this because off the top, you might think like, oh, if this person is an organizer, their home is probably immaculate at all times. They
Nowhere
probably
near.
are OCD, and that's what makes them a good organizer. But then when you think about it, it's like maybe a person that organizes their own life could be like that. But
Yeah.
if you're going in, you have to understand it's not necessarily like, I'm going to take this system and put it into somebody's house and they're going to love it. You have to say, like, so how are you living? Do you want
Exactly.
your spices in the labeled things, or like, are you actually cooking with the spices and you're
Right.
refilling them? And that's
Do
probably
you
not,
even use your kitchen? Yeah.
totally. Or is
Yeah.
this just something you want to look nice? Or like, what are you wearing? What are you actually wearing? And going through these things and really being able to take your people skills and understand a person. And then basically the work is just a product of that. It's just kind of
100%.
following that understanding of the person's life
Yeah.
and seeing how you can de-stress, declutter, take shame and mess and
Yeah.
confusion out of their life and, provide that
Yeah.
relief for them.
I almost like call it like accountability coach. Like, how
Mm,
excited are you to sit down by yourself and go through your stuff and purge it? You're not. But
right.
if you have somebody who's sitting next to you, especially, like, I love the ones with like memorabilia, because it's like we're going through and they're getting to tell somebody their stories that don't know,
Mhm.
where your kids probably have heard the story 500 million times, but now you get to express it to somebody who hasn't heard the story. And it makes it easier to make that decision. Like, I don't, somehow I've gotten very good at being like, you don't need it. And like, I'm very, very honest, but I'm very sensitive with my honesty as well. Like, a little napkin that means absolutely nothing to me, that might look like trash, might be the last napkin from the dinner you had with your grandmother. And like, that's the stuff I've learned over time. It was like, oh, it might not mean something or look like trash to us, but to them, it's everything. And so that sensitivity and that level just has been, like, again, the, like, winner for this company.
Do
That
you think that sensitivity, that ability to kind of deliver sometimes harsh feedback or recommendations, but doing it in a way that is kind, is that something that has just always been inherent to you, or do you feel like that's a skill that you have developed over time?
a skill for sure, because I would always, like, even younger, up until, I mean, honestly, recently, I've always described myself as non-confrontational. Like, I don't want to shake the ground for other people, or anything. So it's definitely become a skill. But I think what I've realized over time is, like, the way you deliver something is everything, but at the same time too, like, I genuinely care, and that, I think, I've realized that naturally exudes out of me. So when I kind of started taking those steps of being a little bit more honest, and it might ruffle the feathers a little bit, I don't think I've ever had anybody be like so mad at me that I was honest. It's always been like, thank you for your help, thank you so much for your support, like, I need this, I appreciate this, and stuff like that. Where for so long growing up, it was more so like, don't ruffle the feathers, non-confrontational, stuff like that. So it's definitely been a skill that I've learned, not something that just came natural to me at all. At all.
And it feels like probably the more situations that you've been in where it's like each one is a little bit different, that muscle has probably just grown stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
Do you have a story of a particular organizing situation that either was particularly difficult, or even like a client that you had to turn down because it wasn't aligned with your work philosophy?
Um, Not really. We had one that I think the project was a little bit more pushed by their kids than it was something that they actually wanted. And so one of the aspects of the company is the purge, like purging stuff. And we don't force people to purge, but in order for us to do what we do, you've got to let some of the stuff go, especially if you're somebody, I don't, not everyone's a hoarder, but some people just, they have things they like. Throwing away is not easy, so we've definitely, there was a project where we kind of came to a halt with it, and it was very sensitive. There was a death in the family. They were living by themselves and everything, and we didn't want to quit. We kept going at it, but you could tell like this person was just not ready to take it
Yeah.
on. And so I wouldn't say we've denied any projects or anything, but that one was just like, it was so overly sensitive and the timing was not right yet.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I feel like it is a sensitive
Beyond.
situation, like the
And it's
stuff that we
vulnerable.
have. It is
Like, you
vulnerable.
have strangers coming into your house that you've never met, getting opening every drawer, every cabinet, everything. Like, sometimes you don't even remember what's in the back of your nightstand drawer.
Totally.
And, like,
Totally.
like, stuff like that. And, like, I mean, when I say we've seen it all, we have seen it all. And it's so interesting because people think it's just them. And I'm like, no, this is a terrible way of explaining, but we're so numb to it because it's in every home. It does not phase us. Like, the amount of people, I always say, when they submit photos of like the space they want organized, I'm like, do not clean it. Do not clean this and send me a photo of something that you wanted it to look. Do not clean it. Like, leave it in its rawness, because we need to see that, because that's normally how it is. And so many people will try to submit photos, or when we go do walkthroughs, you could tell they've cleaned things up, because again, we're strangers coming into their home, and that's what you do.
Totally.
And so yeah, it's very interesting, but it's been fun. But the client facing part of it has been honestly the best part for me. I've
Does
had some really interesting, great stories, great people through the whole
so
thing.
well, I feel like it establishes this closeness with people too,
100%.
where it's just like they feel like the level of trust that's there, is so
That's such
amazing.
a common thing that we
Yeah,
get from our clients at the end of a project. Like, if we're with them for a week or 2 weeks, like at the end, they're like, you guys feel like family. Like, I'm sad to say bye, because then we just leave and we're gone, and you're left with these beautiful spaces and everything. But like, we've been in your spaces all week, 2 weeks sometimes, and stuff like that. Like, and they're like, and now you guys just leave me? And we're like, yeah. But it's
yep,
funny. That's a big common denominator of what people say. Like, it's like, with how much we're in your stuff and how often we're in your home during the project time, they're like, you guys basically become family. Like, a lot of women are always like, you know more than what my husband knows at this point. Like, and we still, like, one of my favorite parts is like, I get text messages all the time like, hey Courtney, do you know where this is? Because like, we have a logbook, and I'm like, yes,
uh-huh,
like your top right drawer in your bathroom. Like, it's so funny
amazing.
how like dialed in we are to everybody's things.
Well, that establishment of trust, though, is likely what gives you those recommendations.
Hmm.
That in project-based work like this, it's like if you can find a way to really like have your client trust you and place their hard thing in your hands, like that is what gets
Yeah.
grows your business.
Yeah.
Really, I think that it's kind of intimidating for someone to be like, well, if I wanted to start a business like this, how do I do it? And it's just job by job, get one job and knock it out of the park.
And that's honestly with everything, like with entrepreneurship. Like, and I think that's what I have realized has been my strong suit, is like, I jump with not knowing what's at the bottom. And that risk factor is like, I tell like people all the time that I come across who are like, you just do it all. Like, how do you just, and I'm like, yeah, but you have great ideas. Like, I come across so many people who like will present something to me where I'm like, how are you not doing this? Like, you are lighting up when you talk about this.
Mhm.
And it's that jump. Like, they're like, well, I don't know this and I don't know that. I'm like, I don't know anything. Like, 90% of people that jump into it don't know.
Mhm.
Like, if you just take the jump, you'll learn as you go. You'll figure it out. You got to make the mistakes. And that was like, I've always been the risk taker and take the jumps, but for me, I think I always tried to avoid the failure. And as
Yes.
I've gotten older, I'm like, oh my god, like, I gain so much more out of failing than I do succeeding. And
It's so true.
that's been hard to swallow though. Like that's been very, very hard to like flip that mindset and understand like, okay, failure's not like it's almost like I hate the word because failure is not failing. Like I've gained so much more out of my failures than I have in the things I've succeeded in.
It's such an important point for entrepreneurs and really for anyone, I think, in any
Yeah.
career. Like, whether the failure is going to come from a review with your manager and they're like, you didn't
Yeah.
nail this one, like, what's going on with you? And that feeling of like, oh no, but
Let
then
down.
realizing, like, okay, this is an opportunity for growth.
Mhm.
And I also can really like refine myself and get even better from this. This isn't the
Yeah.
end of the world. It isn't an end game. Like, this is literally, this is how
Oh,
businesses grow. And I think that a lot of mentorship programs for young women, you're told like find your passion and follow your heart, and that sounds so um like Disney, you
yeah.
know, that it's like,
It's
yes,
such
then
a
pursue
great
your
word.
dream and just keep doing it. And like what that actually looks like in reality is like putting together a version of it and then realizing some parts are wrong and then like
Yeah.
fixing it and putting it back out there and seeing and getting some feedback and then incorporating that. And it's like it might not be your pure idea that you had by the time it gets to market and is
Yeah.
serving people, but it's like if your heart is at the core of it,
Yeah.
that's what makes you able to like keep
100%.
facing the failures. Because Shia and I have had so many I mean, we've been running this company for almost a decade now, and it has looked so different,
Yeah.
over the years. And our heart has always been like, whatever it is, whether it's the podcast, which it is now, or when we were doing our workshops, our purpose has always been like, take the teen experience, take the shame, the confusion, the lack of guidance, the loneliness,
Yeah.
and shed some clarity on it. Like
Yeah.
get some vulnerability out of women that are potentially very
Yeah.
intimidating and make them accessible and talk about the stuff we feel like no one else is experiencing, but we all experience when we're young and when we are old, and make it just light. Um, but
Yeah.
that has involved a lot of experimentation, a lot of failure.
Massively. And what really truly catapulted that for me was COVID.
Mm.
Like, I think for a lot of people, especially, well, for everybody, but especially like I can speak on is business owners and stuff at that time, there were so many question marks, so many unknowns, so many guessing games, so many different things that like it was you as much as you could talk to other business owners at that time, everybody it truly shined a light on how everybody's storyline with their businesses were different. Whether you had tons of money backing, you had no money backing, and you were using your savings for this, or whatever. So much of that played a part in the success or the break within COVID and companies and stuff like that. And that was by far probably the biggest eye opener for me, and where I learned majority of what I implement in my life now was learned during that time, because that time rocked my world. And what that at the time, I'm like, I'm never coming back from this. Like this is going to kill me. And then fast forward, I'm like, oh my god, if that never happened to me, like I would be still like, it's so wild what I've learned being out of it and looking back. But yeah, that time, like that's truly what has kind of molded me into cut to 5 years from now, the person that I am now, because COVID kind of changed and forced me out of a comfort zone that I was so used to have to, navigate things differently and take different approaches to everything.
Let's talk a little bit about boutique ownership.
Yeah.
I think almost every little girl at some point would be like, I could own a shop,
Yeah.
And every boutique owner I know, I mean, that is a tough business
It
because
is.
it's small business, but you're working with a lot of different suppliers. You've got
Yeah.
employees. You're always on. You've got inventory.
Yeah.
It's not
There's
necessarily as glamorous as it might seem on the
no.
outside, but you were top boutique for what, 6 years in Orange County?
And I started it at 22, so I went in full guessing game, like truly not knowing anything. Like I genuinely, it's so funny. I look back and I'm like, how hard could it be? You buy something at a lower price, you mark it up, and you just make money. I'm like, it's that simple. And I was like, that was I still to this day laugh about that mindset, because I just was like, it's nowhere near that. it's nowhere near that. But I mean, I had the greatest time ever. Like, I didn't go to college. So for me, being in Old Town Orange with Chapman University right there, Cal State Fullerton down the street, UCI, I did so much with the universities that I got my college experience just with the business. And it just was, I mean, it was the greatest experience, but by far the most life lesson learned in all of that.
Well, and I mean, the name of the boutique was literally your name.
My name and that,
So
oh
it's
my
like
God.
that, I mean, is so bold because it's like, all right, that's you. It's connected to
Yeah.
you.
But
Uh,
everything I did with that was bold. Like, that
yeah.
storyline for me is so fun to look back on because, again, I didn't do college. So prior to opening the store, I was between 18 and 21 years old. I was running multiple, for one person, I was running multiple boutique stores within Orange County, like at Fashion Island, South Coast Plaza, Topanga Hills Mall. I was 18 years old, 19, opening these storefronts with her and everything, and having no clue what I was doing. And then I kind of had a fallout with her, and I was just like, you know what? Like, I'm going to go do this on my own. So I look back now and I'm like, that business was kind of opened out of spite. And for a 22-year-old, I was like, I had a lot of cockiness to be like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to throw my name on it as well. So like, you see, like, that I did this, but it's so funny looking back. Like, there's this big, convention called Magic where, like,
Mhm.
have you heard of it? And
I
all
was
everyone
at
from
Magic
around.
as a model back in the day
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So like, I
with
would
like Ed
go,
Hardy
oh, that's a throwback right there.
throwback.
But yeah, I got online and I was like, I'm going to do this. And I filled out the application and I honestly lied through the whole application because I didn't have a standing business yet. And my dad is such a like ride or die. He was like, let's just go. Like, so I made fake business cards like on Vista print and like had them printed at Staples. And we went to Magic. And I had been before with the company I was with, but never by myself. And I don't know what made me place orders for a company that did not exist yet, but that was like the fire under my ass. I like was sitting there placing orders with some of these companies and clothing companies, and then I got back into Orange County and I started getting calls like, your order's ready, your order's ready, and I didn't even have a business yet. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I'm going to jail. Like, I'm going to jail. I placed orders on a fake company, and that catapulted me opening a storefront. Like, my dad like helped me scramble with that and everything. We found a location right off the beaten path, and we flipped it in 3 days. And I started taking orders, setting it all up, and then the rest was history. Like, it was full blown guessing game the whole way through. But that goes back to like, I just risk it. Like, I just take the jumps, I take the jumps, I take the jumps. But it's so interesting what has always come out of it with
Well,
taking the
and
jumps.
even like I love that I like the visual of you kind of feeling that like spite and like, you don't think I can watch me do it. And
Yeah.
I had an experience like that where like a former mentor of mine, I ended up like not taking a job that he was trying to get me to take.
Yeah.
And then he was like, he basically was like, you're gonna fail.
It's the exact words I got. They're like,
He
you'll
was
never
like,
be
"Watch it
able
6
to do
months, you're gonna fail." And I was like, "Watch me." And I went and I got my stockbroker's license and
it.
you know, even whether it's failure of something you've done or a person that like doesn't believe in you, it's all so they can be so
Yeah.
powerful. And it's like you don't want to build your whole identity or your whole business just on like trying to prove somebody else wrong, but sometimes if you
No.
light the fire to like, okay, watch me, and then you have to dive deep and be like, okay, how am I going to make this succeed?
Yeah.
What in me can make this work?
And that was something I learned later down the line because as I was going through the roller coaster of the business, especially during COVID, it made me question, like, it made me go back and question, like, why did you open this? What was the part that you fell in love with? And it's so funny. That's how I learned. I'm like, oh, I kind of opened this to prove something. I didn't actually love fashion. I didn't actually like, it wasn't the actual business that I loved. It was, I opened it to prove something. I proved it. And then from there, it grew to be, which is so funny where I've ended up now, is I loved throwing the sorority events. I had a massive event every year called Coco Coachella. And I would do my own festival at the store in Old Town. Like, I quickly learned it was the events that I loved and the people and the community and all that. It was, I could care less about the dress you were buying or the t-shirt that you were buying or anything like that. It wasn't even the retail aspect of the business. But it took me 10 years to figure that out.
Yeah.
And that kind of was so interesting to learn towards the tail end of that company, because I was just like, oh my God, this whole time I'm like, I got to get clothes, I got to do this and all this kind of stuff. But what actually came out of that was like, you don't like shopping yourself. You're so okay with your $7 Target shirt. You're so happy with that. Like, it never was that. It was the story that kind of came with the purchase. And it's so funny. Really quick short story is, I just had a client with the organized. She called me and she's like, Courtney, this is Annie. I was a Coco. And I was like, oh my God, Annie. And she was like, I bought my sorority rush outfits from you. I bought my graduation dress from you. She goes, I went on a date and I came into your store that day and got an outfit. And I was like, oh my God, joking with her. I was like, how'd the date go? She's like, he's my husband now. And she was
So
like,
cool.
my engagement dresses from you. And she goes, now I'm reaching out because we bought a new home and we're having a baby. And she's like, Coco Rose has been part of every chapter of my life. So I want you and your team to come move us into our new home and help me set up my nursery. So, like, that was one of the last projects I just did. And it was like, it was just wild to me. I'm like, this girl was like a college kid coming to my store, and now she's a homeowner, married with a baby. And I've been literally part of every chapter. And that's the part I love of business. It's not, yes, it's the business, but like, that is the big part of why I love doing all these different things.
I love it.
Is
And I think that you being able to look back and say like, okay, like I learned so much in this, but like, okay, also being able to distill, like when
Mhm.
COVID happened and like the business part of it is like, okay, like I gotta switch this thing. I've got to like take the hit, be humbled,
Yeah.
have something quote unquote fail,
Yeah.
um, and still keep going, but like you're able to distill like, okay, the thing that I actually even loved about owning a boutique was all these experiences
Yeah.
and events and putting a space together and having it make sense and have a feeling. And
Yeah.
it's almost like kind of these little flash in the moments that you're creating for people and touching people's lives.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about how that has evolved into your work at the Nest and the way that you do events? Whether, I mean, I feel like you just flex all your different muscles. You're like, yeah, I'll do a spread there. Oh, you want me to decorate it? Sure. Like I'll throw that birthday party. I'll, do the event
Yeah.
at the Nest. Tell us a little bit about how that has blossomed out of the
Yeah.
COVID closure of your store and all the different businesses you've run since then.
I think for me, what COVID forced me to do was be extremely vulnerable. And I didn't realize how difficult that was going to be for me, because during the time when I launched the store, being 22 years old, at that time, all my friends were graduating college. And like, I went to a modern day high school, a very big high school that fed in, everyone went to big universities and all that. And I took a very different path. So it was interesting, kind of being like, I was on my high horse a bit, being like, I started something while everybody was graduating college and trying to figure out what their next chapter was. I was a business owner making money and do it, like, it was, so I had this confidence that was completely, annihilated during COVID. And so during that time when I closed the store down, that vulnerability that had to come out, where I was basically, and again, it triggered back to like childhood, where it's like, it's all in who you know. Cause I was like, I haven't done a resume since I was like 17 years old. I'm now 32. Like, where do I even, and what was interesting about that is like, I had to reach out to people and be very vulnerable. Like, I'm looking for work. And at the amount of times, which like is absolutely amazing, that people had this image of me, but they were just like, but you're too good for this. Like, this is beneath you. This is, and I was like, no, I'll do anything. Like, I will take any job. And I look back at that time, and the amount of jobs that I did, I was running clothes for another boutique store that was my competitor. I was setting up picnics on the beach for a friend of mine's company. I did so many different jobs, and I was like, I don't care what it is. So it was really interesting. I had which I believe you know too. Actually, I know you know Lacey and Paulina. I had Lacey, who I've known since we were children, reach out to me, and she's like, I have my daughter's birthday party, and um I just like need help. And then she posted something on Instagram, was like looking for somebody to do something at my daughter's birthday. And I reached out to her. I was like, I'll do it. And she didn't even describe what it was yet. And I was like, I'll do it. And she's like, no, Courtney, like this is beneath you. You don't. And I was like, I'll do it. And from that, doing her daughter's birthday party kind of catapult me into this event thing, because she was just like, people kept talking about you, like you're like, and I was just like, I love this. And so she's kind of truly pulled me out of, my dark days, and being like, Courtney, you could do this, like you could do anything. And she has fed me, like, I will say, like, Lacey and Paulina have been two people that have talked about me in rooms that I'm not in. And that has been like the genuine like game changer for me. And that started the events thing. And then for the Nest, what's interesting is they had posted saying like, we're looking for an event coordinator. And I had wrote in and I was like, let me know where to send my resume. And I knew one of the owners, and she was like, send your resume. Like, that's adorable. She's like, the job is yours. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. And so literally within 24 hours, I had the job. And I've been here since the very beginning. I mean, this used to be a Still Interiors, which was a home decor store. And we slowly started changing it into an event space, to now it's this massive event space that, holds up to almost 200 people. And it's beautiful. And I've been part of that from the beginning, which I love. Like, I think over this whole time, what I've realized is, and this is something that has transformed with the organized, because I'm no longer an owner in the organized house anymore. I'm the business developer for it, because for me, I love the 0 to 1. I love the conversation of being like, this is the idea, this is what we want to do. And then it's the part where you strap on your boots and your hands are dirty and you're jumping into it all. So that 0 to 1, once the company is going and it's a well-oiled machine, it's great, but that part's not as fun for me. I like the 0 to 1. And so with the Nest, I got to be part of that 0 to 1 part. And now we're seeing it actually come to full blossom this year, because the full expansion happened in December. So it's been really, really, really cool to see kind of come to life. And the event part, that's my favorite part. Like the creativity, the client, all of it. It's by far my favorite thing to do.
I'd love to jump back into your childhood and teen
Yeah.
years. I feel like we've unearthed so many different aspects of your personality that make you successful today. That 0 to 1 really like founder
Yeah.
mentality, being able to thrive in chaos, being bold and risk taking. Can you tell us about yourself as a child? Like, were these things always inherent? Were there people who, really built those qualities in you? Paint the picture of Courtney
Yeah.
as a little girl.
So really funny. I was surrounded by entrepreneurship. Like, my dad owned, if like you're local to Orange County, he owned a restaurant called Rockwell's in Villa Park, which was a very well known restaurant for 30 years. It still stands. He doesn't own it anymore, so it's still there. But he had it for 30 years in Villa Park, and then he had a bakery too. So he was known as Mayor Marty, even though he wasn't the mayor. Everyone knew who he was. And it's so funny. I always had personality. Like, I am a mini me of my dad for sure. But he forced me at a young age to show up to his restaurant like on Mother's Day, and I had to pass out roses to all the mothers. Or like, I'd show up, and I knew all the people that worked at his restaurant went to Villa Park High School. So they were all my babysitters growing up. So it was like I was learning the cash register, and I was learning all that kind of stuff. So I was really like brought up in that environment, watching, my dad wake up every single morning super early, get there. He wanted to always be the one to turn on the lights and start the coffee machine, and he very, very, very hands on. And his success came from his personality and the clients that he built and everything. And that was what I was growing up in. So I think it just came so natural for me. Like, I look back and I laugh. My mom and I would go to Costco, and she's buying like the big Red Vines container and the Sour Patch and all this stuff, and I was starting a snack bar for the neighborhood kids, and I'm slinging candy for money. It's just like, it's always been a thing for me. And to be taught from him, and like the all in who, and this, that, and the other, it truly stems from him. That's just always what I've been brought up in, and I really didn't know anything else. And I don't think I realized till I got older. I'm like, wow, like because of him, like is why my path has been so different. But it's really interesting too. Both my parents were terrible in school. Like my dad was such a troublemaker, such a rebel child. Like no one got the grades. No one went to college. So in our household, there was never that pressure of grades and everything. Like it was almost like, I did terrible. Like my GPA, I failed everything, but there was no discipline that came with failing. And I think that's what created the risk in me because I'm like, oh, I can keep failing. Life keeps moving on and it's okay. Where like a lot of my friends and what the families we were surrounded by, like they were in trouble if they didn't, carry a certain grade point average or anything like that. Like it was always talked about in their household that they would be going to college and all that, or their parents had gone to USC or UCLA and, all that kind of, that was nowhere near our household. So there was always that little feeling of being different because I'm like, oh, I got an F, and my parents are like, okay, like, are we going to dinner tonight? Like, it wasn't anything that was like I was scolded for.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
it's so great to share your perspective too on this because I think that this idea of success, I mean, our school system is, I mean, there are so many great educators in our school system. The value of the socialization and just being around other children it's invaluable, and for some kids, the academics in school are like the best,
yeah,
like I was that kid, like I'm in English class, I was like, this is my vibe. I love reading, but like my husband, also an entrepreneur,
yeah,
was like, school was not my thing. I could
no,
not focus. I could not sit down and focus.
no,
And he's incredibly successful
yeah,
today, and I think it's so important to share that it's like, yes, always apply yourself in any situation that you're in.
yeah,
Try the thing, but if there is failure there, it's
yeah.
not an end. It's
Well, and
not
that
it's
was
not
something.
closing of a door even.
No, and that was something that was pushed in our household. Um, with me was just like, okay, like I remember them sitting me down and being like, "You're never going to be good at school." And like that's okay, but like my dad's like, you don't shut up, you don't stop talking, run for ASB, run for student council, do all. So like I
Mm,
did all that stuff, and that's why like it's so funny. I look at my resume from high school, I mean grade school into high school, like I had a great resume. Like if I pulled the grades, I couldn't imagine, but I couldn't pull the grades. But homecoming court, ASB, I planned all the formal dances and the pep rallies and all. Like it's so funny that the things that I was doing in high school is what transformed into now. And I will say there was one, he was the ASB advisor at Mater Day, Mr. Madrano, and that man changed my life. Like he was the one person that was like telling me like, okay, you're going to help me do winter formal, you're going to help me do prom, you're going to help me do the homecoming game and the pep rallies and all that. I think he saw that in me and kind of fed that to me. And I'll never forget when I graduated, he pulled me aside at graduation. He goes, if you ever go on to start a business, I want to be one of your first calls and investors. And I called him when I was considering starting Coco Rose, and he was my investor in Coco Rose. And that was so wild to me, like because he saw it in high school, and he just like very similar to my parents. They're like, you're just not going to succeed on the education part, like the books and all the great, like that's not going to be your thing. But I think I just got lucky being surrounded by people that saw something in me, but also too was like almost like patting me on the back, being like, it's okay to not be good at this. It's okay to not fail. Where I feel like my surroundings didn't get that as much. And that's why those risk and jumps and all this has been difficult for people that I was surrounded by growing up because, failing was scary. Where for me, I was like, I was never scared to fail because I never got punished for failing.
mm. That story literally brings tears to my eyes because someone like that can literally save a young
Save
person.
100%,
We've had girls in our events where it's like, it's all it takes is someone just kind of buying into you,
100%.
investing in you. And I think that the value, it's not someone saying like, oh, stop trying, you're not going to be good at that. Like they're criticizing you, but really saying like, hey, in all of our lives, there are going to be some things that we try And maybe we tried a few times and like we just aren't good at that. And maybe we're not even into that thing and we're just trying it because that's what we're told to try, or our parents signed us up for that class or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and it's like it's just not working. And to have someone look at you and be like, that's not working, but
Yeah.
these things you're doing seem
Yeah.
like they are, or like you're into that. Like you should do more of that. And to
Yeah.
have someone just kind of like be that mirror for you when you're that young, I think is just life changing and so special. Like high
And
five.
to be told too, like in that, like if you're gonna say you're gonna do something, you do it and you finish it out. Whether you like you finish it out. And that's something that has always stuck to me too. Like if I said I'm gonna do something and I quickly find that I don't find interest in it or this is not gonna be my thing, I still am going to finish it out.
Mm.
And that, like just the life lessons that I were taught, again, I didn't know this in my younger days. Like I always felt different. I always felt so different than what my surroundings were because again, that wasn't the norm in the 90s of not going to college. Like I joke till this day being like I was one of the first ASB officers at Mater Day to not go to college, where like the four ASB officers of the school, they always went to big universities. And I took pride in that. I like it was so funny. Like I didn't see that as something that was bad. Like I took pride in being like, well, I'm the first to do it. Like, there's a trophy for me. And it's so funny. Like with high school, I got the cord for perfect attendance. I showed up every day. I loved school. I just failed it every single year of my life. Like it's just, I was in summer school. I was year-round school, summer school, but I was like, I took it as a social environment. It was so
Well, and it's
funny.
like looking at an environment, right? And seeing like, well, what works for me here? And it might not be the thing that everyone's measuring or looking at or whatever, but it's like, but what works for me? What can I take from this situation and create my
Yeah.
own reality from and grow the things that I want, plant my garden, really.
Yeah.
Um, were there any times as a teenager that you like really had to work through something tough or feeling down or insecurity? Do you remember any like big moments or even themes from your teen years um, that you have some perspective on now?
Um, I mean, I think the big thing that I've learned was the people pleasing. And I still am trying to figure out exactly where that came from. I think I always highlighted it as like the things that I was taught, like it's all in who you know and this and that. So I always felt like if I didn't please, I wasn't going to be able to get results out of it. And so for life lessons and things, I wouldn't say that it hit me hard in my teenage years. I would say my struggle in my teenage years was that just feeling different, like those moments of like high school graduation was extremely hard for me. Like everyone had stuff that they were going off and looking forward to, whether they're picking their dorm mates, they were going to the university of like that was such like I loved high school so much that that transition was extremely, extremely hard for me, especially because there were so many question marks. But really, like my lessons learned, my reality, like what I feel like that all came with Coco Rose. That came with that business. And I think a lot of the experiences that people get when they are in their earlier days and they go away to college, I think that's that time that you start, figuring out your insecurities, like all that kind of stuff. I didn't have that. I went straight into the workforce and I always thrived in working. Like working, I was good at that. So confidence and everything I never struggled in until COVID. So I think like these reality checks and these lessons learned that people get at a younger age, I got at like a lot later date. And that was COVID for me, which was just a couple years ago. Like that genuinely was every lesson imaginable. And one of the things that I realized most was, and this I think plays into the part of the risk taking, I grew up with stability. Like my dad made great money. So like if something didn't work out, it was okay because it didn't have to. Cut to COVID, like, my dad was a restaurant owner, like all this kind of like we were both in this phase of losing stuff we worked so hard for and trying to navigate that I think for me, all the lessons came out of that. And why was it's so this part of the story with Coco Rose, I think, is what has molded me. Is I had decided in very beginning of 2020, so at the end of 2019, I was going to sell the store and I got a buyer quick. And it was the store was going to sell for $165,000, which was more money than I had personally seen in my life with Coco Rose. And so I was like, okay, like the business did great, but what, as you know, and your husband knows, like a business could do great, but that doesn't mean it's all showing up in your bank account in your wallet.
Mhm.
And so I was selling the store. I had a buyer the week of us signing the contract and me getting the deposit for the sale of purchase was when COVID hit.
Oh,
And she was like, oh, okay, remember it was 2 weeks, two
yeah,
weeks. And
yeah.
she was like,
On the curve.
I'll see you in 2 weeks. I was like, okay, 2 weeks turned into 2 months, 2 months turned into what it all was. And she had backed out of the sale, and I was stuck with a business that I was already mentally out of. And I had already set plans with the money I was going to make. Like I was ready to take off on the next chapter. And that's not what happened. So for me, again, like COVID is what truly annihilated me. And I went from thinking like, oh my God, I worked so hard for 10 years, I get to walk away with something from this, to then cut to 2 years of COVID pretty much. And I had to close my doors, and I closed it with debt.
Mm,
And that was such a tough pill for me to swallow, because I felt like, what did I just do these 10 years? And I felt like COVID, like it made the decision for me. Like I didn't get to close it on my terms the way I wanted to do it, all that kind of stuff. And that was the first time in my life that I didn't have the cushion. I didn't have somebody to help pick me up financially and stuff like that. And I always made jokes, because ever since I was younger, I was like, I'll live in my car before I go do a 9 to 5. Like I'll go live in my car. To cut to, I was going to be living in my car almost. Like, granted, I have so many people that love and support me, so that would never be the case. But like, there were jobs at that time after I closed that I was like, I don't have my accounts overdrawn. Like I'm sitting at the gas station bawling my eyes out, being like, I have no money. Like I can't even get to a job to make a paycheck, which never in a million years, being a kid that grew up the way I grew up, did I ever think that was going to be my circumstances. Ever. I never thought it was like the day of not having a penny to my name was never going to exist. And it did. It was my reality. And I genuinely lost everything in COVID, which was, it was a reality that I couldn't even paint for myself if somebody asked me. So those days molded me.
uh, what do you think, some like a internal quality or something you leaned on inside? What do you think it was that really got you through that?
I think for me, it was, I kept going back to, it's all in who you know, and that vulnerability. Like, I was like, Courtney, if there's one thing you know about yourself, you love working. I love working. And so at that time, I think that's when, like, I couldn't believe how quick it happened, but the vulnerability that came out of me, where I just was reaching out to anybody and everybody. Like, I'll do any job. I don't care. Like, do you want, landscaping? I'll figure it out. Do you want your kids watched? I'll figure it. Like, I think it made me go back to my roots and be like, okay, you just love working. Like, you've done crappy jobs. I worked at Claire's piercing ears. Like, I've done the bad jobs. Like, I just wanted to make the paycheck. And not only that, the gratefulness that came out of me, um, having to go back, because again, I was on my high horse holding a boutique store that was, number one in Orange County, getting voted, all that kind of stuff. I was on my high horse. So I think for me at that time, it was the vulnerability that came out of me, and the realization of like, you love working, start from square one, be vulnerable. And again, what's come out of that, like when I look back just over the last 2 years of my life, I'm like, I did not think a company was going to come back out of me for another 5+ years. I'm like, I don't have it in me. I don't have it in me. And cut to, I'm like, okay, I've got this and this and this and this. And it just like, it truly got to highlight my natural abilities that I don't think I realized I had.
We, as a company, we talk a lot about confidence and how, like, we love etymology and breaking down words and what their real root meanings are. And we break down the word confidence over and over in workshops and courses. But the word confidence means, it comes from roots meaning self-trust, literally just being able to trust yourself. And I'm just thinking of you in that moment after COVID and having to, like, when everything is stripped away, everything that could externally identify you, create your, personality persona that you're this business owner, you're award winning,
Yeah.
everything is stripped away, being able to look in the mirror and say, like, you love to work. And I know you can pick it up. That's
Yeah.
trusting yourself,
Yeah.
and it's like confidence isn't just when everyone's looking at us and praising us and it's like, yay, I've reached the top of something. It's like real confidence is in that low moment,
Yeah.
and being like, even if I lose everything that I like think I'm tied to, I still got this and
Yeah.
I can still land on
And
my
that
feet.
didn't that took me a while to figure out. Like that was the first time like I and it's so funny when I look back at the decisions I was making at that time. Like I didn't therapy was not a thing. Like my family, like we didn't talk about issues. It was kind of like a brush it under the rug type of family. And so for me to sign up for therapy because I'm like, I need help, I need direction, like that was a massive game changer for me. But that confidence did not happen overnight. It almost like started with desperation.
Mm.
Like it was like, okay, like am I going to be living in my car, or like do I just go take $1 for anything? Like, and that's kind of like it came out of desperation first before it hit confidence again. Like I just was like, I was desperate, I needed $1, and how I was going to get that dollar and whatever job I had to do, I was going to be doing at that time. But over the time, and like again therapy, and then like people like Lacey and Paulina and all these people like who gave me an opportunity, it just like again like that stuff has truly what has built my confidence back up. Like, okay, you've got this. Like even starting like the organized house and some of the stuff, like I still struggled with the confident aspect of being like, okay, am I doing this right? Because I made so many mistakes with Coco Rose. Like I always joked, if the IRS came after me in the first 3 years, I don't have receipts for anything. Like I had no clue what I was doing. It was all a guessing game. And still cut to, I owned a business for 10 years. I've been through all of this and I still play the guessing game every single day. It's a constant guessing game.
I
But yeah.
love I love how you continuously mention that, like, that your community, the people around you that have like found, like, hired you, supported you,
Everything.
that it's like that interplay of that internal confidence, just trusting yourself, like, I'm desperate, but
Yeah.
I have enough to go say yes. I can say yes to something, even if I don't know that I exactly know how to do that thing. I know I can figure it out,
And it's
and even in that desperation, I can figure something
and
out.
I think that is what, if you were to ask around about me, that would be what people would say about me. Like I didn't, starting a charity for one of the clients of mine. I had no idea how to do that. I didn't even know what a 501c was and stuff like that. And I'm sitting there just like, and I figured it out. And she's got a charity. Like when I think of the things that I said yes to, having no clue, I'm like, and that's why I use the word concierge. Like I will solve your problem. I will figure it out. And I think again, that came from not only the desperation, but the people pleasing skills and all that kind of stuff, but it's molded into this whole aspect of like, okay, yes, it could be people pleasing, it could be a desperation, but like actually, I love doing this. Like, I genuinely get joy out of taking the chaos or the things that people feel like they can't accomplish or stuff like that and turning it into this beautiful thing that they were just like, how? Like the impossible. Like, to me, nothing's impossible. Like I will figure it out and we will make it work, and it might not be exactly what you pictured, but it's going to be something that you love. And all that, I think that's what I love. And that goes back to that 0 to 1. Like, let me solve it, let me figure it out. I want to do it and I'll figure it out and I'll make it happen for you. And that, again, the word concierge, which has been something that has been ringing in my head for the last couple of months, is like, I like that to me is almost like it, like me, like that's my business, is like I'm a concierge to anything that you need it to be. And if I don't know how to do it, I know, so going back to Mayor Marty, like my dad, I know so many people because that's what I was mentally trained to do my whole life. It's all in who you know. I know everybody in every aspect. Like if I don't know it, I know somebody that does. And that's what's really honestly helped me through everything with the success.
If you could, so we always like to end with the same question. If
Yeah.
you could look back at your teen self, what was one quality that maybe you didn't appreciate then, that looking back on, you love so much about the person you were as a teenager?
I think honestly, passionate about people. If there's one common denominator, it's the passionate about people. Like I always say, and I think I wrote this in the intake form that you guys said, like failing up. Like I love that a common denominator of my entire life story is that failure is okay, because that is something that doesn't settle well with people. But for me, and it took time to like realize that I was okay with it, but like the two things, failing is okay. So failing up is what I always say. I'm failing up because I take way more out of failing than I do succeeding. And then my passion for people. Like, I think because I'm so passionate about people and people's stories and all that kind of stuff, no matter what circumstance I am in, I will always get out of it and pull myself out of it because of the passion I have for people. And I think those are just the two things. Like, I would tell my younger self, like, honestly, just keep doing what you're doing. Like, you feel different, you feel off, you feel like, not the same as the norm, but it's going to pan out for you.
Courtney, this has been such a great conversation. I
And
so
so
appreciate you being so open,
cool.
painting the picture of yourself just evolving time after time after time. So thank you for your
Oh,
time.
thank you. This has been
Yeah,
so fun and therapeutic.
same. Well, we love you and we so appreciate you.
Of
So
course.
we'll talk.
Love you guys too. Thank you again for having me.
And that's our show. If you liked what you heard today, please like, subscribe to, follow, and share Meet Bridget with your circle. The best way to help our work here is to rate and review our podcast. We're listening and constantly working to build something helpful for you. Catch you next time.